done, which was a pathetic, with what was a pathetic excuse for a school board meetings with a bunch of cowards and authoritarians and people that are literally abusing children. I don't know how else to explain it, because that's what's happening. People have to grow up. They have to realize that this is authoritarian. They have no reason to listen to parents. And I'm going to play the 20+ minute segment where we got an ambulance. I'm already kind of pulled all the way to the side. Anyway, we're gonna put the 20+ minutes of parents being concerned with what's happening to their children exclusively on Rockfin. We dare not try to play it here, okay? We just dare not. Okay, guys, there's no reason to start going off on me there. Okay. So anyway, we're going to play that all there, but let me explain what happened at this meeting, okay? First of all, everybody has to wear a mask. They all have to play pretend. They know the parents don't want to wear a mask. They don't wear a mask outside. We're wearing them around our chins. We don't wear them until we get to the actual part of the building where they're forcing it, and they have police officers as security. And remember, it's not the sheriffs. They bring in the city cops who are afraid to lose their jobs. Okay, so they have them there. And then the first thing on the agenda is sustainability. Oh, they got a sustainability award. So I got to watch all this propaganda about sustainability and recycling and how great the program is and this and that. And that goes on for about 10 to 15 minutes. Let me tell you the only part of that presentation that I cared about, that I liked at all. The part where they were showing children from 2006 in previous years smiling without masks on. It's the only part that had any relevance. And then, on top of that, I had to watch a 30-minute presentation on inclusion under the guise of the Special Olympics and the Unified Sport Program. So this masked up dude had these cards that were basically feelings cards. Inclusion, meaningful inclusion, and then they had other things on the back. And you could tell that it wasn't really about disabled kids or the Special Olympics, but in changing the language and to bring more authoritarian dictates to your kids under the guise of helping them. And this was a 30-minute presentation. It was ridiculous. And of course, after their presentation, they left. Well, guess who the vast majority of the people were there for? They were there to keep their kids unmasked. In fact, the only person that got up and spoke, basically, on behalf of masking children, didn't have any kids. Not only did he not have any kids, he could barely repeat the dumbass talking points that all these, followers of Bernaysian psychology use. You could barely repeat those. I want to repeat that. Barely repeat those. All the parents, they took their 2 minutes. This guy didn't even take his 2 minutes. Okay? And he was the first one to speak. So at the end of it, they asked, when are we going to put this back on the agenda? The parents owned. They owned. They stood up for their family. They stood up for their children. They stood up for humanity. They have no reason to be anything more than proud of what just occurred, as far as their attempt to be civil, to be truthful, to be honest, and to fight for their children. I've been talking about this a lot more lately because a buddy of mine, somebody who I've met out here, Jake, I'm not going to say his last name, but him and his father, Hugh, are really great guys. And they're certainly, not exactly cut from the same cloth as Jason Burmis. And I'm not cut from the same cloth as they are. And I can immediately, tell we have a lot of differences. But over time, those differences have become more and more irrelevant because we realize that we're fighting the same battle against the same people. And although we may have those differences, we're fighting for the ability for us to be able to have those differences, to think differently, do different things, maybe raise our families a little bit differently, but have a say, to be free humans. And, he just said something so profound to me. So profound to me. He said, a lot of people talk about that they're going to die for their kids. I die for my kids. But we all die, right? And that's, again, we talked about this with Fitch today. And that's kind of a natural instinct that you want to protect your offspring. You want to protect your children. And in that flashing moment of imminent danger, maybe you would take that bullet or you would jump in front of that car, right? You do that for your kids. But that's just one sacrifice. And I'm not saying you shouldn't make that one sacrifice. But in order to live for your kids and fight for your kids' humanity, unfortunately, it's going to take sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. It's continual. It's not easy. It might be harder than that one moment where you choose to give your life for your child. Well, again, will you do that in a different way? Will you actually give your life for your child by making moves, by having your voice heard, by showing up to events, by not complying? Will you do that? And it was just a really good conversation with Jake yesterday when he was telling me that and saying that to me. And it hit home. It hit home. It was like, that is such a good point, man. I wish that more people would take the time to think about that, because I don't think that most people have taken the time to think about that, because everything's cartoon level, right? Everything's an action movie or a TV series or something that's entertainment. It's not real life. It's an illusion. The reality of real life says what? That you got to fight hard all the time. That evil actually, in most cases, does win. We were the exception in this country when we had a rule of law for and by the people. And again, even when that initial document, the Constitution, comes into play, they realized they weren't perfect. They realized it. They set up ways to change that Constitution, the perfectly imperfect document, right? Where later on, women could vote, right? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine a time where women couldn't vote? I mean, my goodness. It's almost, you think about that and you're like, wow. But then again, we also lived through a time where if you were of a certain color, you were just less of a person, if you were a person at all. Okay? Period. That's it. I mean, we have to have a realization that those things have happened in history, and even today in places like Libya, the slave trade is a reality. It's not fake. It's something that was brought back, right? I mean, I want you to think about that the slave trade during our times has not been eradicated from the earth. That should let you know out of the gates how much we don't understand how evil and tyranny is the norm. And so many of us have, bought into propagated nonsense, quite frankly, and lies that are continual, that are generational, that have allowed this predator class to essentially, unfortunately, have their way with society. And you better believe they're coming for your kids next in this country. You can see the gradual stages of westernized tyranny through COVID-19 84 now. They are extremely visual. You know what's happening in Australia. You see that the second highest level has now happened in Canada. That's all a reality. Okay? All a reality. And if you're subverting that reality, if you're not confronting that reality, you are a huge problem at this point. And you're almost begging for the predator class to come and enslave you. So that being said, Rockfin. I'm almost home. So within the next probably 15 to 20 minutes, that entire exchange over at the school board. You're going to get to be able to see it. I'm going to be putting it online for free, of course, because we're trying to get this information out there. So at the very least, go make that free Rockfin account and follow me. If you want to support me, go make the $9.99 premium membership, and you can do $99.99 for the entire year. Save yourself $20 and invest in a platform, again, that allows me to speak freely, that I'm not worried that if I put up a bunch of parents talking about what's happening to their children in schools, that I'm going to be banned off their big tech platform, because I know I'm not going to. So guys, I love you. I thank you for joining me, and I will see you on the flip side over at Rockfin. Peace.